Hello guys, and welcome back if you're one of our beautiful subscribers. And if this is the first time you've come across us, then my name is Dan and my partner's name is Laurie, and we are, I guess you could call us growers or farmers dedicated to growing sustainably and using what is often referred to as permaculture methods. Now today we have a very exciting video which is going to be all about these guys, melons. And Laurie has tenderly and carefully raised 34 of these this year over, I think, 4 different varieties. So we're going to be documenting the process from start to finish, basically, growing them in our new no-dig polytunnel. And hopefully we're going to have some great results, and you may even learn a few tips and tricks along the way. I've been busy with my baling twine here, cutting 4 lengths for each plant, as you can see tied to the crop bar here on the polytunnel. And the reason why there's 4 is that we're going to be pruning these in such a way to promote 3 or 4 shoots, which we will run up each wire. And in doing so, I'm making sure I cut the lengths of twine long enough not only to reach the soil surface, but also give us an excess of roughly around about 9 inches here, which will be very important in the next process. And that's because I'm going to be pulling these out like this to the end and making sure each twine ends at the same place and tying these into a knot. And tying into a knot does use a bit of the length in itself, but also because we're going to be planting directly down from the centre, the 2 outside ones need to be slightly longer, so giving yourself a bit of excess on the end is always beneficial. And I'm now going to follow these strings down to roughly the centre point, which is about there, and make ourselves a nice little hole in our compost. And this is a compost top mulch. We use a deep mulch, no dig, basically, method in our beds. And I'm literally going to pop now our knot in the hole and put our plant on top of it. And I have here some organic feed with some mycorrhizal fungi added in as well. So I'm going to sprinkle a little bit just there. And gently firm our compost back around the plant. Sprinkle a little bit around the top as well. I'm going to gently put our wood chip mulch back around the plant. This is going to really help to retain moisture between waterings. The 4 varieties we're growing are varieties that are suited to our colder, temperate climate. These are Pocket Melon, Minnesota Midget, Charentais and Watermelon. I'm going to begin by having a look at our plants and finding the strongest stems. and in the process removing any weaker stems. And then continuing my way through the plant until I've got one decent stem for each string. And in terms of watering, I'm being careful to not over or underwater the plants. And it's now just time to sit back and let nature do its thing. It's now the 20th of August and things are growing very well, as you can see around me here. And we have a ton of melons coming on of all different varieties. And I'm going through today actually doing a weekly prune of the vines because they are very, very vigorous. So I was just going to show you how I've been doing it. So it would seem so far that about 5 to 8 fruits are what our melon plants really want to be able to support. I'm finding after they've set between around about 5 and 8, any after that, even if they look like they're initially going to develop into a fruit, they then soon die shortly after that and shrivel up. So there's not really any need to have the extra foliage now that's growing and all the other side shoot vines that are trying to still run and spread everywhere. So what I'll try and do now is demonstrate to you how I'm pruning these. So this here is quite a congested plant that I haven't really thinned out properly yet. So if we look down here, let's see how many fruit we've got. There's one just down here. There's a couple more on the ground there. And then there's one more behind it, just down there. And do we have any higher up? Let's have a look. It doesn't look like we actually do. Oh, there's one here and a small one forming here, and I'm sure there's probably a few more smaller ones starting to form elsewhere. So we've got roughly one. These kind of ones, I'm not sure really whether that's going to have time to develop in time before the end of the season, but I think any that size I'm going to leave in place. Probably the really small ones like this aren't going to develop in time now. I might be wrong, but that's how I'm going to do it. I might leave a few on some other plants. These are a variety called pocket melon, and they're really beautiful stripes on them, aren't they? Okay, so not counting the really small ones, as we just saw, this vine has got 5 decent size melons on that I think can probably form in time. So what I'm going to now do is work my way through, and you see you get a lot of these side shoots coming from the main stem with flowers on, but these, even if one was to form now, it's not going to have time. So I'm going to work my way through and remove all of the thinner side shoots that are coming off the plant. These are the ones that do actually develop the fruit, and any that don't have anything on, or in the case of this one here, you see we have a small melon just here, hopefully you can see that, and after that the vine has continued to grow here and it's getting more flowers on. Now we don't need all of that now, so I'm going to go through any like that and prune the vine off just after the melon, just like that. So all of the goodness and nutrients can go into forming that melon and not into growing new foliage. So this is an example of one of those side stems coming off the main stem, and that's a hell of a lot of foliage to be growing there without any action going on. And there's about 7 or 8 of these on each plant, and literally you can come through here every week, and there's tons to prune off. I've got piles and piles of it. So they're definitely a plant where you need to keep on top of them, I think. Although they do seem to also self-regulate in the fact that they know that they can only grow maybe 5 to 8, like we've talked about before, decent sized fruits that they'll get to maturity, and they seem to kind of self-terminate all of the other ones. Although the other varieties, other than Minnesota Midget, seem a little bit harder to stay on top of actually. A hell of a lot more foliage like this everywhere, constantly bushing, and they're a little bit further behind as well. So I think so far, loving the Minnesota Midget for slight ease of pruning and looking after, and the first one we tasted today was absolutely beautiful. So it's been our first one to ripen as well. This is an example of where we have some of our sweet potatoes growing beneath our melon plants, and it's very important in this case because we have all this foliage going on here and all of the new growth that our melon is constantly trying to shoot from the bottom. I really want to get in here now and open the bottom of this up just to allow a bit more airflow to help prevent any problems that we may incur with any mildew diseases. Downy mildew is something that can be quite a problem on these. And they're constantly shooting these small shoots from the bottom, so it's a bit like with side shooting tomatoes. You just have to be on them, have to be on their case quite often to keep on top of it. So the nice thing about these sweet potatoes is you can kind of direct them around where you want. So we can create a nice open base here around the bottom of our plant, and I'm not only removing any new kind of stems that we don't require here, but also some of the larger leaves as well, like this one, because that is going to allow a bit more light in as well as airflow. And as long as we've got enough of those larger leaves higher up the plant, they will support the plant's growth and the fruit's development. Oh, they've come off beautifully straight away. Go, let's give it a go. Oh yes, oh my god. It's the most flavour I've honestly ever had in a melon, I'm not even joking. You're going to think I am, but I'm not. Wow, such a deep, intense flavour. So I decided to do a bit of an experiment with some of our melon vines, and this particular one here, when it grew from small, I let it set all of its fruit when it wanted to initially, which has resulted in, as you can see possibly down here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 melons, but they have all formed right at the very base, and they're actually sitting on the ground. And as you can see up here, there's no fruit actually set anywhere else above it. A couple of plants along here, the same variety, I let it set some of its fruits where it wanted to early on, but I did cut some off. And on this particular one, hopefully you can see here, we've got several melons here, lower down, but actually not on the ground, and a couple higher up here, and one right up here. And on this plant, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which are looking like they're all gonna hopefully mature in time before the end of the season, which is great. And it's better results than the first plant, I think, because those fruits actually don't look as healthy as the ones that are growing higher up. A bit further down again, we have another plant of the same variety, Minnesota Midget, and on this one, I didn't let it set any of its fruits lower down. I kept the stems bare, and as a result, our melons are forming midway to the top actually of the plant. And on this one, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 on that one. And in terms of the fruit size and development so far, it's not really any way far behind the plants that I let grow further down and fruit onto the floor, which is a good sign because I think it's much better to keep the bottoms of the vines clear, because not only because I'm growing sweet potatoes all along here and several other types of plant, that can cause quite a lot of problems in terms of mildew type diseases, especially when we get the slightly colder and damper weather. And it's August now and we've barely had any sunshine so far this month, only a couple of days. So I'm starting to get a bit concerned that that could be the case. So I'm being very careful to water when I do early in the morning, and I'm only actually doing it about once a week at the moment, because of the wood chips we have down in here is really helping to retain the moisture. I think forevermore now there's going to be an added sense of excitement for when September comes around, the month of the melon harvests. It seems almost every time we come in here there's more ripe and ready to go. More than we can actually even eat ourselves, which is a true delight. It seems I underestimated the pocket melon's potential as well. Being a smaller fruit size, the plants already have been putting out quite a few fruits each, and there's still at least 13 or 14 more on almost every single plant. So if we grow this variety again, I won't be so quick to cut off a lot of the smaller fruits that were set in later in the season. Laurie's been helping out with the pruning as well, as they grow so fast, needed all the help I can have. One of the problems you may encounter if growing one of the later ripening varieties, like these Charentais here, is that the plants are more susceptible to mildew or wilt problems the later the season goes on. It's now the 11th of September on a hot and humid day inside the polytunnel. And we've actually been harvesting and enjoying melons now for about the last 3 weeks. And today I'd like to give you an update on how they're doing, and we're going to do a little taste test as well. The pocket melons were actually the first to start maturing, and they're on average the size of a cricket ball to a squash ball. And they've been steadily ripening, and we still have tons yet to come. They start to turn this mustardy brown colour when they're becoming ripe, like this one in amongst the sweet potatoes. The plants are very prolific, and it's quite fun having a forage around each time I come in here to find some ripe fruit. The Minnesota Midget followed shortly behind the pocket melons, and there were only less than a week's difference in the ripening time actually. And these are slightly bigger, absolutely delicious, and they also have a staggered ripening time as well, which is nice. Here's a good example of a ripe Minnesota Midget. It's still attached to the vine, but you can see cracking around the stem where it connects to the fruit itself. You can either snip this off with a pair of secateurs, or it may even sometimes come away just by moving the fruit. Here's an example of one that's slightly overripe and has actually come away from the main stem itself in the meantime since I was here last. The other cantaloupe style melon we're growing on the other side of the tunnel is the D. Charentais, and these have actually been completely later ripening, and we've actually today got our first one ripe, which we're going to do in our taste test in a minute. And the nice thing about these is they actually really stagger the harvest period compared to the pocket melon and the Minnesota Midget, and they're just as prolific, so it's almost like having a early and a late variety of melons. And finally, what I'm very excited about is our watermelons here. And I think we actually have our first one ripe today for the taste test. I'm no expert on knowing when these are ripe, but I have heard that when you tap them, if they make a hollow noise and there's a bit of cream colouring to their stripes underneath, that's an indication that they may be. So let's give it a go anyway. Okay guys, so I'm going to start by cutting these in the smallest order first, and our first one is the baby cucumber. This isn't officially one of the proper melons, but I thought it would be a bit of fun because we've grown these as well. So I'm going to cut them first and then we'll do a little taste test in a minute. Okay, so next is the pocket melon. And this is the smallest type of true melon here we're growing. And it's also the first one to mature and ripen. Oh, look at that. Very nice. Next along the line is the Charentais, if I'm saying that correctly. Sounds like a French name to me, potentially. This is a Cantaloupe variety as well. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Very nice, thick flesh compared to the pocket melons there. Let's put that to one side. Thirdly, we have our Minnesota Midget. And this is the one that you saw that had actually just come off naturally by itself on the vine. Another Cantaloupe variety here. Stunning, look at that. And this is the slightly earlier variety than the Charentais. So this would be your kind of early or mid-season one. This would be the slightly later from our experience this year. They look similar inside though. And then last but not least, we have the big boy, the watermelon. And as I say, I'm not sure. Let's move that into the camera a bit more if we can. Now I'm not sure, definitely, if this is going to be fully ripe, but we'll give it a go anyway, shall we? Let's check it out. Trusty old machete here doing the job. Oh. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. It's looking like we're actually too early on this. Oh, what a shame. But we have quite a lot more. So for the end of the video, hopefully we'll be able to get a ripe one in to show you. But I may as well try a bit of this in a minute anyway. Okay, so here goes then. Going to try these in order again of the smallest to the largest. First is our little cucumber melon. Been growing these for about 3 years now, and they're delicious. Little like grape-sized bites, and they really taste of small cucumbers actually. So they're not a true melon. Very nice though, and they're very abundant. Our next one, the pocket melon. Let's give it a go. I have had a few of these already actually. The flesh on these is very thin actually. It's almost disappointing when you first get them if you're expecting a traditional melon that you've always had from the shops. But I think I would be disappointed if I grew it by itself, the only variety, but they're actually, the flesh is quite hard and chewy, but it does have a distinctive sweet sugary taste. And as the name suggests, they fit in the pocket and they are quite a nice bite-sized treat just for one person. Okay, so moving on, Minnesota Midget, and these are absolutely delicious. We've been having these now for around about 2 to 3 weeks, and they have that stunning, quintessential, deep flavour of a beautiful melon, but only better than what you know, because it's fresh from the plant, you've grown it yourself, it's organic, it's only had the best treatment and care, and it's from vine to mouth in minutes. Man, you can't beat that. Sorry having to watch me eat here. Now, these Charentais. First time trying this. It's been highly anticipated. Been waiting a while now, so let's give it a go. Wow. That is probably equally as good as the Minnesota Midget. It's got a rich, deep, intense flavour, but it's slightly different to the Minnesota Midget. Very, very nice. Wow. That is really, really nice. So worth the effort. And you get roughly, I'm noticing, about 5 to 6 decent size fruit per vine or plant that I think should mature on these in a greenhouse or polytunnel anyway, and we're in the south-east of England. Another note to make that these varieties, other than the watermelon, are all in the same, how would you say, not family, but they will cross-pollinate each other basically. So if you're going to grow the Minnesota Midget and the D. Charentais, you would want to grow them in 2 separate places, 2 tunnels for example. I know most people don't have that, but that would be if you're collecting your own seed. If you're going to buy your own seed each year, then fine, you can grow all 3 in the same place and they won't interfere with each other that season. Now, last but not least, we have the watermelon, and I think I've harvested this way too early, potentially because it's not red inside, but then I just had a second thought that I think some of the varieties do have white flesh, so let's see how it tastes anyway. Really nice actually. I'm not just saying that. Maybe this might be a white skin variety or white flesh variety with red blushing, but it certainly doesn't taste unripe. Really nice. Again, really nice. So after tasting the watermelon, I think it's still a little bit off fully ripe, but I'm happy enough to leave the video there and say that it's still well worth the effort of growing these. And I'm going to have to leave you now, I'm afraid, because I've got way too much melon to eat. But if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to like it and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Peace and plants!